behavioral science within the social science department, and basically I interned at NYU in the psychology department with my mentor, Dr. Chrissy McWayne. And well, last year it was 4 of us who were working on this project, but now I was the only returning student, so I'll be presenting this project by myself today. And the title of my project is PEARLS, which stands for Parents Enhancing Academic Readiness Through Lessons About Strength. Okay, so what is PEARLS? PEARLS is a project that explores what Head Start parents raising children in urban, low-income communities think about positive parenting, because in the past, many parenting researches have been done in upper-class or middle-class families of white suburb Americans. So we're trying to document more diverse aspects of parenting from low-income communities. And through this project, we learned about parent beliefs and values, parent goals for their children, and what parents do with their children to achieve those goals. Okay, background research. In the 1960s, a famous parenting researcher named Diana Bauman, she did a lot of parenting research on white middle-class families, and she came up with 3 types of parenting. The first is authoritarian parenting, and it consists of high levels of restrictive, rejecting, and power-asserting behavior. So if you have a parent that's really strict, they would be considered an authoritarian parent. And, and a permissive parent would be a parent that's more or less like a warm parent who's very laid back and they are more submissive to their children. Okay, so the purpose of this research is to conduct research on parenting methods before most parenting research was done on white middle-class families, but what we're trying to do is get a more diverse information about parenting. However, in order for this research to be relevant to all people in diverse backgrounds, cultural differences must be explored. The PEARLS project aims to document many strengths in parenting of African American parents, because a lot of the parenting research out there, they don't really focus on African American parenting, they only focus on white parenting. And as we learn about positive parenting in Black communities, we learn more about how we can influence school readiness in children. And the methodology, first of all, our sample size, in our sample group we use Black Americans of low socioeconomic status, which means they lived in a pretty much low-income community. And the primary caregivers in the Head Start centers were ages 21 to 50, so the parents were pretty young to a pretty high age. And the children that they had were from 3 to 5 years old. And the representing centers of the Head Start centers were from Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan, and were comprised of 34 interviews and 10 focus groups. So what we did in our research was that we went into the Head Start centers and we observed the parenting methods of African American parents, and we conducted interviews to see what they thought about positive parenting. And we actually watched focus groups where we watched them interact with their children. And with the procedures, first of all, we had to make a partnership with the Head Start centers. With many researchers who go into facilities, you have to make a relationship with the department. You can't just go into an environment and research people, because they become very skeptical of researchers coming into their environment and researching parents and children, because a lot of times researchers would come into these facilities such as Head Start and they would write bad things about the facility rather than good things or positive things about the parents. And what we did was we listened to the parents through interviews and discussion groups. So some of the questions that we asked parents were, what are your concerns as being a parent? And what are your goals and expectations for your child? Because we wanted to know what kind of insight they had in being a good parent. And what are the particular things that Black parents do that you think are good or effective ways of parenting? Because we want to get a better representation of African American parenting. And the data from interviews and discussion groups was videotaped, recorded, and transcribed. So what we did was, after we recorded the sessions with the parents, what we would do is we would sit in the laboratory and we would transcribe and write for verbatim each and every word that the parents and children said. So we would have to write on the computer, let's say if they said something and they had a pause or they stuttered or so, we would have to write in codes that signified what they said. Okay, so what we did was, since there were 4 people working in the facility from the Harlem Social Society, we couldn't have 4 people working on the same project, so what our mentor did was split us up into 2 groups. So what I'm going to talk about today is my project that I focused on, which was how do parent methods differ from African American and Caribbean immigrant parents. And our hypothesis, which was me and Nina Sandys, which was a student who was working in my facility from Harlem Social Society last year, we hypothesized that Caribbean immigrant parents are more likely to be more strict and protective of their children. The reason why we hypothesized this was because many times when people immigrate to a new country, they become very protective of their children, and they become very concerned for their children not to be assimilated into like direct American culture. They want them to retain their cultural values and so on and so forth. And my other group members, they worked on how social economic challenges affect parenting of low-income urban Black Americans. And they hypothesized parents face obstacles that require them to utilize the available resources and overcome such challenges. But today I'm only going to focus on question 2 because I don't know that much about their information of their project. And the results, well, some of the themes of the questions were parenting methods. And for the improvement of parenting, 29% of the Caribbean parents said that the parents desire to have a better way of life and are willing to use new parenting methods that are relevant to their children. So what we did was we documented the responses that parents had to certain questions. So if we asked them about what they were most concerned about, if they mentioned things that were under these categories, it would be in such statistics that it would represent the frequency of certain things that represented certain concerns. And 43% of the parents said that they talk about strict versus permissive parenting, harsh rules and physical discipline versus communication, because a lot of parents, they have difficulty in choosing what kind of parenting they want to use, if they should be a more strict parent or a more permissive parent, because they want to adapt to the American values, but they don't know if they want to let go of their old parenting discipline. And community factors also work with the environment. Parents talk about Caribbean houses that they have like backyard nature as well as close relationships with their neighbors, because back in the Caribbean, most of them talked about having like houses that had farmland and animals and the freedom of having your own land, and they were concerned about living in apartments. As when they immigrate to America, they have to live in restrictive living because you don't have enough space to have your own land and be as free as they were in their home country. And according to them, certain parts of America remind them of the islands because a lot of them, they wanted to move to Florida actually, a lot of the Caribbean parents that we spoke to, because they like the warm weather as opposed to the cold weather in New York. And however, most of them were disappointed with the clustered apartments that they moved into because they said that it restricts them as a parent because they can't let their children go outside and play in the sun and such because they live in clustered apartments, so they don't really trust their children going out and playing in a neighborhood because they might not believe that it's safe. And 14% of parents mention guns and violence on the streets, and this may affect their parenting because they might be more restrictive in letting them explore the outside world, because if your child is 5 to 10 years old, you're not just going to let them roam in a neighborhood that you would believe to be dangerous. It would restrict the child into developing more within a household than going out into the